The people out there are going to be really curious about the Brazil prison, and they're like, "Can you take us in there? Like, what first day going in? You know, is it a shock to your system? What you seeing? How the guards treating you? What's the food like? What's your cell like?"
Well, I'm not the average inmate, so everybody's looking after me. When they first pinch me, when they come with the army, they came. Everybody, it was all over Associated Press, and the morning papers was King of New York, King of Crime of New York, and they got my picture on the headlines all over, King of Crime of New York, and Mafia, gangster, street boss, and the article started in magazines around the world. And so when I walk in the penitentiary, the first place they bring me is an Interpol. It looked like an abandoned building, actually. And if I had to think any different, I'd be lying. I thought they were going to hit me as far as I wasn't going back to jail. I thought they were going to try to kill me because I don't know their country. I'm not really sure what's going on. They just brought me into an abandoned building. There's nobody there, and they're telling me this is prison. But there's nobody there. There's no lights. There's nothing. And they're bringing me up the stairs, and they have me belly chained to the wrist, chain around my, upper body down. So I'm kind of like, if you watch one of these Hannibal Lecter movies or The Silence of the Lambs, they got me like that. They exaggerate how dangerous I am in the papers. And actually on the arrest warrant, they have me as a champion jiu-jitsu fighter and a boxer. I'm a boxer, but I'm not a great jiu-jitsu fighter. I've trained for a year or so, a year and a half. I'm not that good. But that's how they're treating me. They're scared to get too close to me, and they're moving me with 6, 7 guys at a time. And they bring me to this one room. It's abandoned. Above me is a military cop with a machine gun. And they throw me in a room with no toilet, nothing, and put me down there. And I stayed there for about a day and a half. Piss shit in my shirt. I had to rip my shirt open. And guys like Go will tell you that mosquitoes that you guys can't believe. It's like you're in a jungle. And I had no choice to take my shirt off, which I didn't want to do because of the mosquitoes. And I had to shit in it. And the other half, I had to use it to wipe. And, I'm looking and I'm thinking to myself, are these guys looking to clip me? Are they looking to torture me? Are they looking to really bring me to a prison? I'm really not sure. So your anxiety level, and I'm trying to see my way how I can get out.
You'd be thinking clip, wouldn't you, really?
Yeah, without a doubt. And I started doing, above me is the bars, and I do a lot of pull-ups being in jail my whole life. So I started doing pull-ups to try to let go of some of the anxiety and push-ups. And eventually I lay down and fall asleep on some shit, piss, whatever's there, bugs, and I end up getting a body infection all over me, and I was welting up, so I'm not really sure what that was. And the next day that developed, and they brought me to another prison, and then they brought me to a medical facility that was primitive, and they brought me to Ari Franco, where I was the first one out of our crew of guys that was in Ari Franco. And I seen the way they walked me through. Everybody obviously knew who I was already. People were yelling all over the jail when I walked in.
So they're yelling respect, or are people now thinking they can extort you because you got money?
No, respect. Yeah, it was even the guards were showing me respect when I came in. The paper said it was very dangerous, and they knew that I was known to be a killer. And in jail, obviously, that's a respect thing. And,
of course, yeah.
And most of the guys looked out. As soon as I walked in my cell, it was, will tell you, Klaus will tell you, Justin, Tim, these guys, there's 12 bunks in a cell there. And one of them is used for food, so there's 11. And there's probably 50, 60 guys in a cell, overcrowded. And I walked in, and the first thing I said is, somebody's giving up a cell. Giving up a bunk. And they started arguing. I said, I'll give you 2 minutes to figure out which one he is, but I'm taking a bunk. So they...
Did you get the bottom one at that?
Yeah, no, I didn't want the bottom. Actually, I said, in Brazil, you can't take a bottom bunk because there's rats all over the jails.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't want the
be
bottom. And I actually like the bottoms if I was in American prison, but
yeah,
there I insisted on the top bunk and I insisted on the back. And... my agent, David Nash, and, we were speaking about this, and I told them I want one of the back bunks. And they said, why? And, people don't understand this because they're the old style bars. So if you're in one of those front bunks, they'll spit alcohol on you and light you on fire.
Yeah.
So you don't stay in those front bunks. Those are the worst bunks to take. And in these jails, there's riots all the time, and there's fires all the time, and there's guards actually if you look up some of the stuff, they threw firebombs and it killed about 14, 16 inmates in one of the cells. So I know this because I've been around a little bit, and I was living in Brazil, so I know a couple of guys, and they told me the situation in the prisons there, and so I had a little heads up on it.
Big thing in America is to go past with the boiling hot water with the sugar in it and swill you.
Yeah.
It's just like...
Yeah, it's the United States jail, same. Yeah.
So what was the food like then?
Rice and beans in a room like 2 or 3 times the size of this. And so it sits there and, you know, listen, the human conditions there as it is known to be, you know, horrendous. So you can imagine that food, rice and beans, pre-made in those things, how many bugs, how many rats, mice are in it. And when they serve it to us, the first couple of times I used to look at the food and at the beginning before these guys got there. But when these guys get there, I tell them the same thing when they got there. Listen, ignore some of those bugs and just start eating it because that's what we got. And at times, you know, when we could get to some gods, there's times that there's weeks it's good, a day is good, and then there's months when it's not. So when we can get to them, we would get some outside food. At times we'd get pizza and McDonald's and whatever else we can get our hands on and buy, and liquor and whatever else. But on a regular fucking basis, we're eating bugs and beans.
Are you best getting it straight away, being first to get it, or are you best just, or is it all the same?
At the beginning, I didn't want to eat it the first couple of days, and there was a Brazilian guy that I got close to in there, and he was in jail with us. And if you see some pictures, we look like we're concentration camp guys.
Yeah.
Very skinny, and you can see how bad your pallor is on your skin color. And, you know, he told me at that time, John, you got to eat this shit whether you like it or not. And then, you know, honestly, it's like anything else. You adjust, you eat it. And I didn't even think about it anymore. I started eating it like it was nothing. And, you know, you're shitting and pissing on the floor in a hole. And the biggest thing that you really never adjust to is the mosquitoes. The mosquitoes just fucking tear you up day and night. And they have dengue and guys are dying from it. So, you know, that's the dangerous part of more that I think than being, you know, the chance of getting killed in there is those mosquitoes.
Soft toilet paper is out of the question.
So if you want, hey, believe it or not, I just vacationed back in Brazil for 2 weeks. And people said, you're fucking nuts. I said, well, I planned on going to the beach this time, not to prison. So.
Yeah.
To get food smuggled in, was that guards or visitors?
Yeah, everybody. You know, at the time I was pretty wealthy. Some of my guys that were with us, we aligned together and we did everything together between buying smuggled phones, bribing guards, hurting guys. We did it as a unit, and that's what made us survive. We didn't do it as an individual. We were real, I got to tell you something, we're very loyal to each other, and you can see it's 12 and 15 years later for some of us, and we're still together and we're still talking and staying in touch. And we laugh at some of the stories that we hear from people telling bullshit stories about a jail. They have no idea how dangerous and bad it was.
Well, you have got that for life now, haven't you?
What's that?
You're bonded for life.
Oh, I thought you said
your brothers for life. Now.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I guess, you know, I talk about the military, every country, and, you know, I got a lot of respect for the military, and every time I talk on a show, I bring them up because I have massive respect for guys that, you know, put their life on the line, whether they see one day action or never see action. They have the chance of losing their life if they do see any action. So I think they understand as a brotherhood. And outside of the mafia, this is the real brotherhood of guys in prison, where the loyalty really is there because we survive off each other, and we're never going to forget what we went through together. And
you do feel bonded for life when you go through such an intense environment.
Yeah, because you talk. We watch guys die left and right. You know, somebody tells you, you know, we watched a kid that was charged with blowing up a bus with people on it. I don't really think the kid did it. They put him in a single cell. And they hung the kid, said he hung himself, and they left him there for 4 days or a week. It stunk in there. And, you know, we're used to this. We watched a couple of guys get macheted to death before that. And the guys weren't breathing well because we're sub below and the air is bad. And they died suffering of oxygen, not be able to breathe because they had, you know, medical problems prior to that. So we watch a lot of deaths. And then during the riots, you know, you're watching 12 and 16 and 40 guys get killed. And, you know, it's no joke when you know, the riots go off and there's fires all over the prisons and they're coming for you. So we learned to protect each other, and we learned that, listen, we're like brothers, family forever now.
They mixed all the prisoners together too, because you have your paedophiles with your burglars and everything else, everything all in one.
Yeah, I mean, there was times when they would shake us down. They put 1,000 guys in a space where honestly you could probably squeeze in 200.
Yeah.
And they'd keep us there in 110, 115 degrees. No lights, pitch black. We're all in there naked, and you got to piss and shit. And we try to, as a group, we all decide that let's piss and shit in the corner.
Yeah.
Where we keep it somewhat sanitary, and there's nothing to wipe. There's no way to wipe yourself. And, those were some of the situations. We were out in the yards. They put us out in the yard full of dogs, rocks. Military police would have guns to our heads and leave us out in the sun. Was, some days in Brazil, it's 120 degrees. We'd stay there, 15 hours without moving. So if you're pissing and shitting right where you're sitting, and I got to tell you, I don't even know how the fuck these military guys stayed, because they're in all black, with masks, with hats, and I mean, they had to stay out there too, just like us. At least we were naked. I mean, so I don't really get it, but it's a different world, and it's a different system, and it's dangerous, and we put ourselves in a dangerous situation. So, as brothers, I mean, I was friends with Klaus for years, since the early '90s. So it was just the same guy that helped me go on a run and survive. It's a coincidence we ended up in the same prison. But then when we meet guys like and Justin and Tim and some of the other guys, Milos, he's dead, and Camilo and Max, these guys, we all stay in touch with each other. And, we have a real good bond with each other. Most of us are very tight with each other.
People say coincidence. I always think that things that happen for a reason. It was meant to be like that.
Yeah, you know what? You look at life, and people ask me all the time, "Well, you suffered a lot. You've been stabbed up, battered. You've been in these prisons and stuff." And you could take a bad situation, a terrible situation, at which I was in, most of my life, or most of my adult life, and you could do something positive about it. And I started talking to kids and talking some of the pitfalls of not following it. And some of the positive is to have like brother friends the way we do now, and we end up being friends for life. No matter where he is, we can reach out to each other and try to help each other. So
that's the main positive thing you've got out of it, isn't it?
Yeah,
and you can help other people.
You're trying to do a positive thing with each other and other people, kids. I mean, kids reach out to me from every. I'm in every country. I probably did about 20 magazines now around the world, and people talk to me, and the parents call me all the time about helping their children. There's a kid here, Sam Greenfield. I was hoping I'd see him before I left. He was involved with a gang, and he was a fighter, and he just received a reward from the UK for helping children. So, those are the good things that happen out of my past, out of bad life.
Yeah.
You help a kid that's really helping a lot of kids. And I commend his father, really, because his father reached out to me originally years ago. And his father was one of those fathers that really cared about his son and his future. And, he wasn't a father that gave up on him. So, you got to give, some kudos to some of these parents that do the right thing and really, try for their children.
Because a lot of them just give up, don't they? Just let them do whatever they're going to do.
Yeah, nobody comes from a perfect situation.
No.
So, I didn't come from one, and, I love my father, but the way I was raised and the area I was raised, we all can have excuses for our life, but, I don't believe in making excuses for yourself or your life. Just move on, do something positive, change it. And, nobody's got a perfect situation, not even a rich kid.
No.
There's a rich kid, their parents aren't around, and people say, "Oh, they're rich, I don't feel bad for him." But he never got some love, maybe. And he was around, and he was alone most of the time. So he reaches out in a different way, maybe uses drugs, or he gets himself jammed up, and he's doing things that maybe he, in a normal situation. But nobody has that perfect normal life. I think that's bullshit.
Even if you didn't have a penny, you're a much more wiser person. You've lived a life. And more than most people, you know what I mean? It's like it's something that you've done, and it's an accomplishment, isn't it? You've been through shit, and you've come out of it, and you're looking good.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I try to take my vitamins. Nah, you know what? It's your attitude. I think it's a positive attitude, and it's no secret I don't like the Gotti, family. Gotti Jr. Excuse me, but the Gotti family. Some of them, I said this recently. I like them. Some of them I really like, and people got a misunderstanding of what went on in the public because they get bits and pieces and they get it from different media outlets that spin a story. And but there's family members of the Gottis I really respect and like, and I feel bad for some of them lost their life. This Joey Gotti took his own life, and his mother was a great woman. His sister was a really nice girl, and You know, so I talk about some of them, and Pete Gotti's daughter, Linda Gotti, is a nice girl, and she ended up testifying against some Gambino guys, and people had a lot to say about her. This is a normal, everyday citizen. She shouldn't be dragged into a life that her father was in.
No.
And, you know, so people got a misconception of who they're calling a rat and who they're not. And I'm big on the Gotti Jr. because of what he did when I was in those penitentiaries. He went with the United States government, and he became what they call Queen of the Day. He called them up and asked, can I meet you? And I want to give information as long as you can't charge me with anything. So these are the things of misconceptions when they're talking about, well, do I dislike Gotti Jr.? Yeah, because he's weak, and he flipped that story around. And then they talk bad about Linda Gotti, who's their first cousin, and she shouldn't be called anything bad. This is a normal, everyday girl that went and gave information like most citizens do. She's not a gangster. She didn't sign up to be a gangster. And her father's not a gangster, and he's got a life sentence because he was trying to help his brother, John Gotti Sr. So, you know, and he's actually a decent guy. He was a sanitation worker. He wasn't a gangster. So, you know, do I dislike the guy? No.
When there's women involved in the crime too, you find the police will go straight away. They'll go for the woman, and they'll start using like, you're never going to see your kids again. You're never going to, and no matter what, a woman's going to put her kids first.
Well, you know, I've talked about this prior, but never in the UK. You know, when you become a made member, you take an oath that you're going to take this thing, meaning Cosa Nostra, before your own family.
Yeah.
Now, who the fuck is going to believe that? You know, so they're starting off being straightened out to a lie. Because at least say that your kids are going to come first and then Cosa Nostra comes second.
Of course.
Because I don't know any idiot that's not going to save their son, daughter, child, baby before they save me. So I wouldn't even buy that. If you told me, try to sell me that and told me, listen, John, no matter what, I'm loyal to you, I'll die for you, I might believe that. But when you tell me you'll let your kid die before me, I know you're full of shit. Mm-hmm. Right? So we understand that. You know, we're not dummies. So I think that alone shows you it's built on bullshit. And that's the problem why it doesn't last the way people believe, you know, that the Cosa Nostra should.
When did you first hear the Gotti name, and what did it mean to you?
You know, I was a kid, and Albert Ruggiano's father was going to prison, and Gotti Sr. was coming up, and he had, you know, a big name. I mean, he was a big name, gangster, famous, and the media built him up to be something that was legendary. And he wasn't legendary what everybody believed. I mean, as a kid, I looked up to him too. I thought he was, you know, the greatest thing around. I followed him. I looked up, I wanted to copy him. And then I understood as I was getting older and more experienced in the street, his arrogance is going to bring down everybody. And him looking for fans in the media is not what a gangster does. Fat Andy Ruggiano was a gangster. He was quiet. He didn't look for the media. He didn't want anybody to know who he was. And the media needed to build somebody up to that status. He wanted to be built up to that status. And he wasn't that, you know, to that status. But I got to give him credit. He was a tough guy. You know, he was just, you know, I ain't saying he was a killer with his own hand. He wasn't. He never was. But his downfall was his ego and the way he portrayed, you know, his image to the world, which destroyed everybody. And really his son, with his behavior now, between, you know, Queen of the Day and between this nonsense he does and the internet and this kid shit, he single-handedly ruined his father's legendary name with the way he behaves. Because really that name had a status, whether, you know, it's accurate or not, doesn't matter. He had that name, and the kid is bringing that name down to he destroyed it, and he's continued to destroy it with some of the shit he does.
It's disrespectful, isn't it?
Yeah, listen, the father was what he was, whether you like him or not.
Yeah.
You know, but the son acts like a cunt. You know, I don't know if I could say that on this thing, but
yeah, you're fine.
You know, we're grown men, gangsters, whether we're good at it, bad at it, full of shit, whether he's a rat, he ain't a rat, but act like a man one way or another. Don't play with internet and Google and having your sister and this one run around on thing and calling people names. It's childish, number one. It has nothing to do with the street world. And I don't think any gangster sat down with his sister and talked. And from what I understand, he's just writing under his sister's name. It's actually him writing. So who the fuck knows? They joke around now in New York and everyone, they call him the Diaper Don now because he's a spoiled bratty kid. You know, so I think that he's destroying whatever was left of, if anybody believed in what his father was, you know, at the time. But his father was one of the shortest running bosses ever. He's boss for 4 years.
What was your first meeting with him like, with Gotti like?
You know, again, I was a kid, so I looked up to him. You know, I wanted to be like him, and I was a little scared, a little intimidated from him, obviously. I'd take an order from him, do whatever he wanted.
How did you get to meet him that very first time?
First time, I was at the club on 98th Street, 101st Avenue. We have Bergen Hunt and Fish Club, it's called. Around the corner from that, there was another club. It was a cafe. It was known to be his brother's club. Richie wasn't a made guy at the time. And then across the street, right across the street from the Bergen, was another little club that Senior used. So I was over there talking to him about gambling, sports business. Willie Boy Johnson was his partner in the sports business out in Brooklyn. And at the time, I met a equipment manager for the New York Mets, this guy Joey DeLuca, who had the New York Mets gambling. And they started calling action into me where I couldn't handle that kind of action. They were betting hundreds of thousands and a week, and back in the 80s. So I brought it to John through the son, and Senior sent me over to Willie Boy Johnson, and I became partners with him on a half sheet. And that's really what really catapulted me, to a little different status at the very beginning. And I guess that was about 83, 84.
And how old were you then?
I was about 21 years old.
So you get a cut on that? Sorry to interrupt.
Go for it.
Yeah, I get 50% sheet on it. They lay out, so if I lose 200,000, Gotti lays it out for me with Willie Boy, the father, Senior Gotti. Lays it out, and, I go into black and until I keep, the action coming in. If I make 200,000, they take their 100,000, I get my 100 grand. And my other partner on the other end was his son. So I had to play a little middle there between father and son, and some of the stuff I was doing for the father and the son were a little different. The father didn't want the son to know things. So it was kind of like a tightrope or whatever way I was walking, and as things were moving along with the Gotti family.
Yeah.
So as you made more money, did they give you more responsibility?
Yeah, I mean, as things went on, I became, personal Gotti's personal enforcer, bodyguard, whatever word you want to use, professional killer.
So did you just jump from earner to bodyguard enforcer, or was the steps?
Nah, I kind of did it on a quick level because I started hurting guys. Initially, and Jeannie Gotti was partners with Johnny Koenig, and Johnny Koenig I had a lot of respect for. I still do. I like him. He was one of Gotti's enforcers and big money makers, and he did a 50-year bid, which he had to do 27 years on it for heroin with Jeannie. And his brother was Charles, that weak guy, different guy, became a junkie, shooting up, smoking crack, and didn't have no business belonging to mob. So this is some of the reason why the mob downfall. But Jeannie Gotti actually, he was my cellmate in 1997 in prison. Most of his guys are John's guys. So, and on the street, I like Jeannie Gotti. He was a good guy. When he went to jail, became a bit a different type of guy, and we went after him in prison.
What do you mean by that?
I heard his best friend, Ali Calabrese, they're going to talk about him in The Irishman. They say he was a gangster's gangster. He was around the Cleveland boss. Me and 4 guys, we gave him a bad beating, and after that, we gave Jeannie a little bit of a beating. This is a guy that's supposed to know Cosa Nostra, and he put a black gang of guys on to Joe Gambino to try to shake him down and extort him. And, I happen to know those guys also. I had a little meeting with one of the guys, Warren, from this black crew. Nice guy, gentleman, boxer. And we talked, and he said, we had no idea what's going on here. We'll get to the bottom. It was some of his guys. And we cleared it up. Once we cleared it up, we gave Ali some beating because the message went through Ali. And Danny, me, a guy named Lee, another guy, Nino, we set him up in the early mornings by the gym, and we rocked his boat real good. And, then we went after Jeannie. And these are things why Cosa Nostra doesn't work, because you got guys like this that break in the level. Now, Joe Gambino, that was with me in prison, was a gentleman and a nice guy, and he understood Cosa Nostra, and whether you like gangsters or you agree with the life, but the guy was a gentleman, that's my point. And he did his time quietly, minded his own business. And there's no way, it's like us stepping to, in jail, everything's racial and it's city bound and it's New York and it's Philly, and the blacks in New York ride with the white Italians, and, they don't go against you. From DC, they ride together. So we all have our hooks, and, we understand jail. So we don't go step to a black crew and try to shake anybody down. If we do, we're in the wrong. We understand that. And Warren was a sharp, tough guy, street guy, and he understood that. And so they stepped away. They didn't step away out of fear. They stepped away out of respect and courtesy. But what Jeannie Gotti did was, if this was 1980, 1990, he came home from jail, they should have cut him up in pieces and killed him for what he did. But we destroyed his time after that. He never did time again like a man in prison.
So for people watching this who don't know who Joe Gambino is, how did he rise up? How did he get into power?
Well, Tommy Gambino's, it's a cousin, and Tommy Gambino was also in prison with me. He just passed away, natural causes. And again, Tommy Gambino was another guy, very wealthy, a businessman, a gentleman. Didn't talk, didn't look for trouble, just did his time, and very well respected. As these guys aren't killers; they're just nice guys. And Tommy was Carlo Gambino's son, and Joe was a cousin. And they do correct time. There's ways of doing time in prison, and there's guys that can do good time, guys do bad time. I mean, maybe, listen, I give Jeannie benefit down for one thing. He could have did 9, 12 years, him and Johnny Kinnick, when they sold heroin. And they took a 50-year bid on the chin out of stupidity because they listened to their brother John, his brother John Gotti Sr. They wouldn't allow him to take a plea where they would have did about 8 years. So if this is about looking out for your brother and looking out for your soldiers, you're supposed to tell him to take the 8. But instead, he was worried about his image, that they're selling drugs, and he made him do 50. So to me, that's not a leader.
Were the Gambinos bumping heads with any other crime families when you were an enforcer?
Listen, you always have disputes between families, but it's usually, for the most part, it's worked out by sitting down and having sit-downs and working out, because this life is not about killing each other. It's about making money with each other. And there's good relationships between all the crews. It's not what everybody thinks. The wars start like over the years, the wars started where guys were clipping our guys left and right because we killed Paul Castellano unsanctioned. Gotti caused that. And as our guys are getting killed one after another, we're not killing anybody back. So this is one of the reasons I said he was a soft leader. We're getting uncontested killings, and we're not contesting them. And there's wars during the Colombo days, wars because they split for factions within the family. And Joey Scopo Sr. was another nice guy. Senior Gotti put him in there to take over one faction. He got killed. We didn't do anything about it. But Joey was best friends with Jeannie Gotti growing up together. So that's why they put him in that position. But usually it's that the money situation's cut up properly. The unions are cut up properly. And it's everyday business is about any other business. It's about making money and without killing and without wars. But, like anything else, guys step over the line, do the wrong thing. And in this life, you lose your life for that.
Did you need sort of permission for taking a made man out?
To kill somebody? Do we
Yeah.
need permission? Yeah, you're supposed to go from, listen, we all do it. I did it. You're clipping guys. Jimmy Burke and his son, Frankie Burke, had a situation. He told me it was for his father from an old heroin deal, and me and him went out in Brooklyn, and we killed 2 guys, and I did it with him. And he wasn't with our family. Jimmy got life already. Frankie was a good friend of mine. He's dead. He got killed too. But I went and did it unsanctioned. Frankie asked me to take the ride with him. I took it, and then, I did the work with him because he was a friend. But otherwise, if I get caught doing a piece of work, I'm supposed to be killed for it. I understood that.
Yeah.
You said we took Paul Castellano out. Were you part of that crew? And can you describe how he was taken out?
I wasn't part of the hit. I was a young guy, but I was privy to it. At the time, Senior again used his friend Angelo Ruggiero as a scapegoat because they got caught on tapes talking about selling coke. And Senior used the excuse of Angelo, and he shelves him later on. But he didn't shelve him. He actually promoted him after the Paul Castellano hit. So that story is bullshit too. He used that as an excuse to go hit Paul. And at the time, Paul had a couple of cases. It wasn't a sanctioned hit from the other families. And what it causes a big rift. But they hit Paul in front of Sparks Steakhouse. I think Sparks on 46th Street. I just did a show there last year. But when they hit him, there was a meeting there, and it was to discuss what was going on in the drug business and what happened with Jeannie and Johnny and these guys. And when he gets out of the car, him and Tommy Bellotti, there's a setup of guys to kill, to make sure Paul doesn't leave that scene. Backup car, it was a backup car at that time, was Sammy Gravano and John Gotti. And Sammy brought his gun, but John never brought a gun to that show. So this is the typical of really what goes on. And this is the typical why people hear me constantly speaking up for Sammy Gravano. And So people understand. At the time when I was being raised in the Gambino family, I wasn't particularly close to Sammy. I seen him once in a while. I said hello to him. And I even was chastised by Gotti Sr. at one time not to get too friendly with him. I didn't understand at the time. But I guess Senior didn't want me to get close to him because maybe eventually he wanted me to hit him, kill him if he wanted. So he didn't want me to have that feelings for him, so maybe I wouldn't do it. Or I would tip him. And, I wasn't schooled enough at that time. I was a young kid when I first met them. But I look at Sammy as I've said it over and over again. If he wasn't betrayed, it would have been a different era. He was betrayed, completely betrayed. And anybody who listens to the history and follows it, and forget about the United States, this is a different country. So maybe everybody would understand, listen, this guy got completely betrayed. He didn't do anything wrong.
We were in prison with his son, weren't we?
Yeah, so we had an ecstasy trafficking operation in Arizona, and Sammy the Bull was out there. That was their operation. And Wildman was on the chain gang one day with Gerard Gravano. Yeah, so Sammy got nailed a couple of years before us. So Gerard was telling us, all the prosecutors' tricks and all that kind of stuff. I've read his book Underboss as well, so I've come to be familiar with his side of the story. Before, just going back to Paul briefly though, is it true that he was in a replica of the White House, prancing around in his silk pajamas, losing touch with the foot soldiers? So that weakness was shown, kind of.
I don't agree with that.
No, is that?
Listen, everybody's going to have their own opinion. I think he was. Listen. Paul killed more guys as a boss than any of the other guys did, more than John. So,
wow.
And John didn't kill anybody with his own hand either. So that's bullshit if anybody knows the stories. Because somebody just sent me a message again. I heard he did this. Well, you heard wrong. You're hearing bullshit stories. When they killed McBratney, he was there. He didn't kill him. They didn't even do it right. They couldn't get him out of the bar. And Galliano had no choice but to shoot him in the bar. He wasn't the shooter. But, listen, Paul was a big earner. So when Carlo handed it over, I don't think it was just because of family reasons. He understood the relationship with Genevieve's family. He understood the money relation and the power that money brought to the Gambino family. And these guys are businessmen. And so the idea is to make money. It's not to kill. I made a lot of mistakes because I was shooting a lot and killing a lot, but that was also my job for a lot of guys. So, as an organization, if you don't have to kill guys and you can make money, that's the idea. And Paul, I believe, was he was a strong leader. Guys will make the excuse he was greedy, he was taking money. Well, 99% of these guys are sheep. There's 1%, I've said it over and over again, of guys like me making money and killing. And you got some guys that just make money and then the other guys that just kill. But you shouldn't be straightening out all these guys because they're somebody's son. They've never seen a fucking day on the street.
If you're killing though and not making money, what's the sense in that?
Well, and that's the problem because you got 98% of these guys are deadbeats. They ain't able to earn. They just follow you that makes money or follows me that's killing guys and making money.
And you got to expect to pay.
Yeah, and so they're crying about Paul or somebody, but go out and earn.
Exactly. Yeah.
So when you got guys like Gerard, I don't know him personally and meet him personally. I talked to him on the phone plenty of times, so people that know who he is. Gerard's Sammy's son, but he's also a gentleman. He's a quiet guy. He's low spoken. He's low key, and the father raised him right actually. And and this is the point. A lot of these guys raised their sons. An example: Patty Catalano was a heroin mover, and his son opened his big mouth to me one day. He thought I gave a fuck who his father was. I tied him up. I put him on lighter fluid all over, and I beat him up, and I was going to put him on fire. I mean, no one gives a fuck who your father is. You're going to respect somebody if you're a gentleman and if he's a tough guy. And if you're a tough guy and not being a gentleman, somebody eventually is going to kill you too.
So with Paul gone, the different factions of the Gambinos scramble for the leadership?
No, it wasn't scrambled. It was, it was a coup, and Gotti had it arranged. And he awarded himself the position. But the problem is he wasn't capable to run in that position. He wasn't an earner. I just recently did a show and the guy asked me, it was Gotti. You told me you're a better earner than Gotti. And I should have answered that a little different. I'm going to say, Gotti fucker couldn't earn 2 cents. Yeah, I was a 10 times better earner than him. But his guys were earners. There's a difference. His guys were bringing in all kinds of money from heroin, construction. He couldn't. He never made a penny from anything. Sammy made the construction money. Guys like Johnny Koenig made the heroin money. Guys like Mark Ryder. But John himself, you know, he wasn't capable. He was capable of running a gang. He wasn't capable of running a mob. And it was a big mistake, him coming into position.
So if Gotti actually never killed anyone, what gives him the right to take that position?
Because he had killers around.